Welcome to Virtualize Everything, where we strive to educate and inform the viewer about virtualization and virtualization technology. Today's video is going to be about a command that I discussed in an earlier video about setting up an open VPN container using Proxmox 7. In that video, we leave off with the need to transfer a file from that server to our host system so we can configure the OpenVPN client to connect to that server. SCP is Secure Copy Paste. Secure Copy Paste, or SCP, is an easy and simple way to use SSH to transfer a file from your server, in this case, your OpenVPN server, to your client system. We're working here on a Mac today. I intend on trying to make a video on Ubuntu and as well on Windows. So the first thing we're going to need to do is install our SSH server on our container or other server. Most server operating systems today come with this pre-installed, but we do want to make sure that we have it, because otherwise it's going to be impossible to use the SCP command. To do that, we're going to use the command apt install OpenSSH/server-y. Now, today we're using root user account for this server. If you're not using a root user account and you're using another account, like when you're using the default install configurations for Ubuntu server, you're going to want to make sure you place sudo in front of the command to use it in super user. So when we press enter here, you can see that there is nothing that really greatly happens because I already have SSH installed on this system. So now our file was in the root directory. So if I run ls, you can see that our test OVPN file is here. In a lot of cases, you can just work with it here. But the user I set up with doesn't have ownership over these folders, and I do not want to run a chmod 777 or grant that user with ownership over this file directory. There's many ways to overcome this, but one of the easiest ways is to run a cp command and actually copy this file to the home directory for the user that we would like. Now, the user I have set up is called VE. So when I press enter here, you can see that we're just automatically sent to a new command line. No error messages and no confirmation messages. But if I was to ls home/ve, you can see that the file, the test.ovpn file, has been copied to the home folder for VE. Now that we have the file in the location where we can work with it and have ownership rights, we can go over to our terminal for our Mac. So I'm going to go ahead and press the up arrow. So the command starts out SCP, the username that you're going to use in the container over here, which in this case is going to be VE. We're going to add the @ symbol, which tells it that we want to communicate with the server 10.10.2.190. If you look here and you run an IP address command, you can see that this server that we're working with is indeed 10.10.2.190. We're going to place a semicolon, the path to the file that we want, in our case, home VE test OVPN, a space, and then the path to where we would like to save the file when it is downloaded to our client system. In my case, this is the path that goes to my desktop. So when we press enter and enter the password for our VE user account on our OpenVPN server and press enter, you can see that our new configuration file for the test.ovpn has been downloaded to our system. I hope you enjoyed tonight's video presentation on SCP and have found it useful and find many uses for SCP in your endeavors on your home lab. If you have, or if you would just like to support Virtualize Everything in their endeavor to bring educational content about virtualization and virtualization technology, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Also, if there is a particular video that you would like VE to cover, consider leaving a comment. I can't guarantee we'll make a video on it, but if we find it interesting, relevant to our topic, or just generally feel like doing it, you may see a video with your idea appear in the few weeks to a few months after you post it. As always, have a good night.